5th year, celebrating the Northeast's dynamic and exciting cybersecurity industry.
Cyberfest has very quickly become an important calendar event supporting the growing Northeast technology sector.
It's a whole month dedicated to cybersecurity in the Northeast. Some brilliant companies, some diverse events.
It's a great opportunity to come and learn about cybersecurity best practice, to network and to meet other people.
I think Cyberfest is a fantastic way to catch up and keep in touch and share what's going on.
Brilliant opportunity to network with colleagues and peers, understand how the Northeast is facing cybersecurity as a community together.
It brings together such a diverse set of people as they seek to make cybersecurity a top priority for Northeast businesses.
So whether you're a cyber student, a professional, or a business with interest in current cyber topics.
It's a great event and something that we should all be looking to get involved in.
Definitely recommend getting involved. Keep an eye out for Cyberfest.
I hope to see you there.
To find out more about Cyberfest 22, simply search online and get involved. Welcome everybody. My name is Phil Jackman and I lead on Cyber North, the Northeast Cybersecurity Cluster. And today we're going to talk about innovation in cybersecurity, why this is important. I'm going to start with a presentation from Mark Robson at Nomad Digital, and he's going to talk to us about innovation within the rail industry, which you may not think about in terms of cybersecurity. And then we've got a roundtable chat, assuming that everybody's here, to talk about why innovation is important. So Mark, if you're ready, over to you, please.
Yeah, let me just turn my camera on and then we will share the screen. I believe it's our button if I remember correctly. There we go. Okay, so can you just confirm for me, Phil, that you can see my screen?
Yeah, I can see that, but I've got it in not in speaker view yet. There you go, perfect.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. So good morning, everyone. What I want to do today is go through a presentation titled Securing Today's Train and Preventing Exploitation. The purpose is just to provide a high-level insight into what a modern train really is, and specifically relating to the computing and data aspects that Nomad Digital works with. So what we're going to do is just start with a brief overview of who Nomad Digital is and myself. So Nomad Digital provides an innovative connected digital technology and solutions that enable transport operating companies to improve the passenger journey experience and fleet reliability, safety, and operational efficiency. So we get involved with an awful lot of things related to trains and transport. Myself, I'm CISP certified. I work for Nomad Digital as a security architect, and I specifically work in the R&D departments, where I try to provide a security insight into new products and existing product changes. So I try to look after security for a wide range of things that Nomad does. So to really get into what we're going to talk about, the first thing I need to do is kind of bring you up to speed in relation to what a train really is, because it's no longer just a set of wheels with some seats on it that you get on and go to a different location on. So we'll have a quick overview of what a train is. So if you think about a train from the perspective of you getting on a train and going for your journey, you'll turn up at a train station, you'll find the appropriate platform, and then you'll find the vehicle and hopefully find your seat and get to sit down. And usually at that point, as a passenger, you'll probably just kind of switch off. You'll relax and you'll just enjoy your journey, which could be staring out the window or playing with your phone, etc. But from a different perspective, if you look at the train from the train operator's perspective, or the vehicle itself and the infrastructure inside of there, there's an awful lot that goes on once you're sitting down and in that vehicle. And it sounds quite strange, but the trains are constantly evolving. So to begin with, a vehicle may have just started with something very simple like door sensors. You know, are the doors shut, are they open, to tell the train driver whether or not he can leave. And then it'll have slowly evolved over time to where we are now. And now you've got things like weight sensors, you've got CCTV systems in there, you've got information displays, passenger counters counting as people get on and off the vehicle. And you've even got toilet occupancy, so we know whether toilets are in use, and this can be broadcast to many different people on the train, so they know what the nearest toilet is for them. And it goes all the way down to having built-in website portals so you can connect your mobile devices to the train vehicle, and you can browse the latest news or watch movies, for example. And we are now starting to even see seat sensors being embedded into trains so we can tell if a seat's occupied and, for example, what it's occupied by. So it could be an adult, it could be a child, it could be luggage. And we can identify this level of data through all of the different sensors and technologies that we're putting into vehicles. It may have started off very simple, but now it's becoming a lot more complicated and complex, and there's more and more data being gathered on every single journey. This leads us to starting to introduce entry points and exit points for data, which as a result creates risk. Originally, a vehicle would have just been the mechanics that get you from A to B, but now we've got all this data going into the vehicle and we're becoming reliant upon it on a regular basis. So to get that data into the vehicle, we've got entry points and we've got exit points. And some of those entry points could be your personal devices, such as your mobiles or your laptops, providing feedback or going through portals to try and gain internet access. And we've got onboard screens where we're presenting information, and we have communications providers helping us get that data off the train in real time. And that data is then feeding itself back through into data centers, into centralized locations, so that way it can become useful. There's a lot of risk that comes along with this, because every time we start introducing a new entry or exit point, we then start to introduce an opportunity for a threat actor, for example, to get involved, or to try and do something malicious. And that's, a big concern. And it's really important that we start reviewing this from a security perspective, because if we look at onboard screens, for example, passengers want to know where they are all the time. They want to know that they're going in the right direction. So if these could be manipulated and giving the wrong information, it would then add stress to the passenger. We have train providers that want to be able to know where their vehicles are in real time, rather than just reporting in when they reach a certain station. And we've got commercial entities that now want to be presented on trains, not just in the traditional poster on the wall scenario, but in video footage, in animated movies, so that way they can try and grab people's attention through a nice visual impact, bright colors and movement, and sound if you're on your mobile phone with the likes of your headphones, if you're browsing a web portal that's held on the train. And we've also got, the other components that I've mentioned, so weight sensors, toilet occupancy, door sensors, that become incredibly vital for the train driver, so he knows the status of the vehicle and if anything's going wrong. They enable them, for example, to identify faults before they become major faults, and potentially pull a train out of service before an accident happens. So there's an awful lot going on, and that sensitivity of data becomes very vital. The last thing we want to be doing is giving the train driver the wrong information, or telling the operator that the train's in a different location. And it's quite sensitive. So the accuracy and the integrity of that data becomes really valuable to everybody involved with the passenger's journey. And it becomes really interesting because trains are attacked on a quite regular basis. And the most recent one was probably the one where you have the Belarus train line that was breached by citizens of Belarus to try and prevent attacks, or not attacks, sorry, resources being shipped to the likes of Ukraine and Russia, where Russia's currently invading. So things do happen. It's not just a system that people get on and then forget about. There are active attacks occurring on a regular basis. The innovation aspect really comes into, how are we making sure that these trains are maintaining security, and how are we challenging the technology that's on them to make sure that we can continue to adapt and provide what customers want. And some of those challenges exist in different ways. So, for example, with your traditional PC, you may have an operating system that lasts 5 to 10 years, and your PC might very well last that long as well if you're lucky. But with a train, you've got a much bigger piece of technology, and the lifespans of a vehicle or train usually can be 30 to 40 years. So as a result, we need to constantly adapt what we're doing to work with the hardware and the infrastructure that's provided, that's designed to last a long time. We've got an increasing demand from passengers, where originally it might have been, I want to check my email, or I want to maybe send a message. all the way down to what it is now, which is people want to be streaming movies and using a lot of bandwidth and data all at the same time, whilst they're traveling at potentially 100 miles per hour down a track. So we're using newer technology, such as interfacing with trackside technology at very fast speeds. And then we're also being pushed to use some of the more common technologies that are coming out, such as 5G technology and open roaming, which then introduce additional technologies such as identity as a service providers. So we're interfacing with new technologies as well from different perspectives. And with all the data that we're gathering, we're also then having to provide it back to the operators in a friendly, usable way. So usually in dashboards, which again provides another risk because it's another interface that could then be attacked, because the dashboards may not necessarily be on the vehicle. They could be in a data center, or they could be cloud based, depending on what the train provider is looking for. So there's a constant evolution of trying to adapt to modern technology and provide what's being asked for, whilst also working with technology that can last an awfully long time. So as a result, we do a lot of continuous security scanning. We do a lot of continuous security integration. And that can be from reviewing the security requirements at the beginning and creating them once we've had a proposal come to us or an idea suggested, to then developing a proof of concept where we're then challenging the security on the proof of concept, to vulnerability scanning on the first iteration of the product, and then continuously doing vulnerability and penetration testing along each evolution of that product as it continues to be developed and operate throughout its lifespan. So there's a lot of security that goes into them. We then start to look at what we're really doing in regards to the security to try and keep those those risks away. And if you look at the bottom of the slide that's in front of us, and you assume a legacy train was a closed system, so nothing was getting in, nothing was getting out, it's designed purely to go from A to B, you've got a nice secure system, no one's really going to break into it, and there's no need for it. But then, as we discussed at the start of this, as you start introducing new systems, you then start introducing new entries and exit points. And when we put that first system in, maybe, which was a door sensor, you've then entered a computer system, which then could present a risk. And a more modern train has lots of different interfaces, lots of different systems going on. And a future potential train could have even more again. And it may be that in future trains, we don't just look at the entertainment space where we're just providing the information to the passenger or the driver. It could be that we're then starting to look at the operations of the train, the diagnostics of the train. And at that point, if we're interfacing multiple levels of systems together and being able to communicate against them, we're increasing the risk even more. So it becomes very sensitive, a very sensitive nature with all that data going back and forth. And the way we aim to protect trains is we utilize the latest technology. So with a lot of the systems that we're developing, we try and implement container technology so we can restrict what's being operated. So we're restricting the resources and the system access. We're dedicating containers to specific purposes. So, one container per job. We're even restricting the network access so that way they can't reach out and communicate with other containers or other systems. We're constantly looking at new security technologies like intrusion detection solutions. The innovation part of that comes from the fact that we can't just take a commercial off-the-shelf intrusion detection solution, dump it on a train. It just doesn't work in the way that we need it. So we have to build and work with specific industries to try and develop a bespoke intrusion detection solution. And we try and harness machine learning and artificial intelligence alongside that. So that way we can always be aware of what's going on. We do try to we do try and stay away from intrusion prevention because we want train systems to always work. We don't want things to come to a halt. So those intrusion detection solutions become quite essential alongside a support desk that has immediate access to the information that's being fed back. We then look at embedding, security from the start to the finish, as I mentioned before. So from the architecture design all the way to the end product and its full lifespan. And we're also using constant innovation of security standards. And when we say innovation of security standards, we mean standards that are currently being developed, so not just your 27001 ISO, which has been around a while, but dedicated security standards that are currently in development and are just being released, such as TS 5701 and other similar industries such as IEC 62443, which is industrial automation and cybersecurity. So we try to harness a lot of different security standards from different areas to give the best solution and the best security for the trains. And then we also push heavily on the zero trust model if possible. And a good example of that is with the likes of Nomad's core product, which is called Nomad Connect. That is a computer that sits on the train and acts as a router. We will make the majority of that system a completely read-only system. So if somebody wants to gain access, they'd be limited to what they could do. And as soon as the train is powered off and powered back on, it would just reset. So we were really, really restricting what people can do with the system and the infrastructure. And it's designed that way to make it as secure as possible. I think a really good way of explaining how this comes into practice, though, is if we look at one of our primary solutions. And one of our primary solutions is providing an internet on board solution. So when you get on the train, for example, you may want to use your mobile phone, you may want to connect to a Wi-Fi solution that's provided by the train, so train Wi-Fi. And you'll get on, you'll sit down, you'll connect to the Wi-Fi, and immediately as soon as you connect to the Wi-Fi, we've got security measures implemented. And one of them would be that you can't see other users' devices. So you could all be connected to the same Wi-Fi network, but be completely invisible to each other and unable to communicate with each other. And that's client isolation. Once you've done that and you're on and you're connected and you can start using the internet and such, we then provide quite most likely a web portal. And on that web portal, you'll be able to browse news that's been cached to the train or media that's stored on the train potentially. And this brings in a whole range of additional security measures that we can implement. So, we'll have that web portal running from a container, as I've mentioned. We'll be measuring and checking the web portal against OWASP security standards to cover all the web aspects. We'll then be running other security tests, so vulnerability and penetration testing against it. We'll also be potentially measuring the container that it sits in against CIS benchmarks for that technology as well to try and make sure we've hardened it correctly. And then you've also got your T's and C's that you'll be approving, agreeing to, your privacy policy, your data policy, usability of the internet that's being provided. So we're covering a wide range of security just on that component there as well. And then on the infrastructure that's running on the vehicle, we'll be running intrusion detection software as mentioned to make sure that if anything does happen, we can hopefully see it and learn from it to prevent it from reoccurring. And we'll monitor different things in regards to that. So we've got insights and alerts always happening. And then you may start browsing locally stored media and information, which is where those movies and news come in. And those tend to fall in alignment with the CIS benchmarks and the industrial certifications such as TS 5701 to make sure they're done correctly for the train environment. And then if you want to browse the internet, your network will be sent down a proprietary technology like a tunnel to the data centers and out via the data centers. And that proprietary technology that operates as a tunnel can be encrypted. Most web traffic will use TLS these days to make sure it's encrypted as well. And then the data centers will have a high level of security as well. So quite likely there'll be 27001 certified. They may be operating to PCI DSS standards depending on the needs. And they'll have very high availability such as tier 3 or tier 4 standards. So hopefully by going through this little presentation that we've just had, it gives you a good insight into, what a train really is now compared to what you maybe thought it was beforehand and all the systems that are now being introduced to trains and how complicated they're becoming and how essential the security is on them. After all, it's only going to get worse, more and more complicated with more and more systems and more security. So yeah, it's a very interesting industry to work in. Phil, I don't have a timer here, so I'm not sure if I've run over or if I'm just at the right amount.
That's been perfect, Mark. Thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah, I can.
So okay. That was really good. Thank you very much, Mark. And if you could just stop sharing your screen and then we'll have a bit of a chat.
Yeah.
Because we were expecting, I think, another two presenters to come on to talk about innovation in cybersecurity. Mira is here with us, but unfortunately Igor and Eldon are unable to get on. I think we're having a few issues this morning. So we'll just see how it goes. But before I bring in Mira, Mark, I just want to say, look, thanks very much. What really interested me about this whole day around innovation in cybersecurity is that you're really innovating in a completely cutting edge area. When trains started, the most exciting innovation was W.H. Smith being able to sell books on the station platforms. Now we expect to be able to watch movies, to communicate with our friends around the globe from a moving train doing 125 miles an hour down the road. So, is innovation driving your business, or does your business have to innovate in order to stay sane, as it were?
It's a very interesting question. I think the innovation comes from many different areas. You've got passengers with constantly new demands. That's streaming, the ability to communicate on a phone, even a tablet or a laptop to work. You might even get people doing Skype calls or Teams calls on a train now. But then we also have the train operators that are constantly demanding more and more as well. So touching on what was mentioned in the introduction to Dynamo earlier, this concept of data is becoming more and more important to everybody around. And the more we see data being collected, the more we can learn from it. So we're getting innovation requests coming from lots of different areas. And the innovation is, can you do X? Can you do Y? And Nomad is then having to go away and trying to solve that problem to be able to provide the answer to the customer. And that customer could be the passenger or the train operator. So it's a very interesting industry to be working in. And, like I said, the demands are coming from everywhere, which is really good.
Yeah, so I think there's innovation going on in the train operating companies themselves. We've just had Lumo started, which seems to be pitching as an entertainment online, as an on-track kind of, that seems to be that pitch. So do you work with the talks to think about their new products and the way that they're going to be engaging with your audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it wouldn't be possible to just take an idea from a train operator and just try and develop it. There's a lot of interpretation, there's a lot of different points of view. So in order to achieve what's being requested, there's constant communication, a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of, can you do this? Can you prove something? Can you do a proof of concept? And it takes a lot of work to get to that final kind of solution that you may start seeing on a vehicle. And there's an awful lot that's going on that passengers don't see as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, and some things occur that you just can't predict. So there's a lot of challenges.
Excellent, thank you. Right, well, we've got Mira and now Igor has joined us. So Mira, I'd like to bring you in if you wouldn't mind. And you'd like to tell us a bit about yourself and then what you're up to, and then I've got a question for you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Mark, Igor, and Phil. So I'm Mira, the CEO of Sistel. Sistel was set up as a research-based cybersecurity company. This happened because I've spent about 20 odd years chasing after hackers across the globe, and realized that it's not sufficient to put just products into the mix, because hackers are always one step ahead. And that feeds quite nicely into the discussion we're having today about innovation. I'm happy to speak about how hackers innovate a bit more. Thank you.
Well, that was exactly what my question was going to be, because
Right.
when you think about innovation, or when I think about innovation in the cybersecurity market, I'm thinking of innovation for good. But in many ways, the way that hackers operate is a very commercial market, and they're always innovating. Could you tell me how that works, Mira, in their market?
Ooh, it's 5 years of a PhD, Phil, right there. So
well, I've only got a few minutes left.
I know. I would say, so it's really interesting how far they've come. So this whole idea we have that hackers are sitting in silos, they're just individuals in front of the computers, it's just completely wrong. It's a huge social network. Their innovations happens because they release code frequently, and they release often. They kind of make sure it goes through a very intricate process. So before you hear of a company being hacked, that hack has happened because they've been in the system for a while. That hack has happened because it's been tested for a long time before the attack actually happened. So they're very good at getting code out very frequently, very good at getting a lot of eyes on it. They work with very strong networks of innovation, and are able to make sure that by the time they're carrying out an attack, they have a high success rate.
Yeah, so they're really all the time looking for opportunity to.
So the innovation is constant.
So does their innovation kind of follow the opportunity, or is it the other way around?
I would say that's a really good question. I would say it's probably a bit of both, because they know there are always opportunities out there. The question we have to ask ourselves is, why are hackers so successful? With all the companies out there, with all the products and services we have, why are they still succeeding? And the reason is innovation, because they're constantly, it's not something they keep time for, it's something they do every day, every single minute. Nothing goes to waste. Every piece of code comes back into the system because they have a process they call forking, by which they kind of develop code. If they can't do something with it, if they can't carry out a certain attack, it gets kept aside, but it comes back into the system. Somebody takes it away, somebody works on it, and they bring it back in. And they're constantly refining it, and they're testing it amongst themselves, amongst other groups, before they finally carry out a certain attack.
Yeah, and I guess the main difference between the darker side of cybersecurity and the lighter side, if that's the right expression, is that it doesn't really matter if they fail, because they just don't achieve something. It matters significantly if companies such as Mark's fail in terms of their innovation.
Exactly.
Okay, Igor, if you wouldn't mind, I'll bring you in, and if you'd just like to introduce yourself. So I think we've known each other about a year now, and you're down there in Sunderland Software City. Tell us about your business and how important innovation is in it.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Hi, everyone. So basically, myself, I'm originally from Ukraine and been working on cybersecurity and the innovations there for more than a decade, then moved to Sunderland Software Center. And now we're moving basically our capacity here just because of the situation in Ukraine. And so basically this is my day number 5 when I'm also visiting fellow in Durham University on cybersecurity. So basically our business, we started in Ukraine as system integrators, so basically more like conventional things in ICT, but then for last 7 years, just because in Ukraine market was created by Russia for cybersecurity itself and innovation, and we started to work with the European Commission on innovation actions in cybersecurity for critical infrastructure. That's more or less about me.
So you're right at the start of your many businesses, I think. Well, I'm saying that some of your businesses have been running for some time, but how is innovation more important in a new business than an existing business?
So basically, with innovation, we've got some problems, basically, like with cybersecurity as well, because cybersecurity is a market which is created by policymakers, just because cybersecurity is not something convenient and something easy that government or corporations embrace. So they resisting towards cybersecurity itself, and innovation in cybersecurity as market is regulated is quite hard thing. But the answer for this in the UK is National Cybersecurity Strategy, which basically promotes innovation, promotes clusterization, involving academia. That's why basically for last 10 years, I'm part-time in academia. I'm supervising PhD students. I'm doing research project, just because without academia, innovation in cybersecurity is hard to imagine. And also governmental funding, which is because without funding by UK research and innovation, we cannot push it, just because market is not ready. There is no money on the market for innovation. And I believe that in the UK, in Northeast, we've got really good situation on that. And Cyber North universities around Northumbria, Newcastle, Durham University are quite active. So that's my idea. So innovation includes academia, SMEs, businesses, and all together having good communication, we can deliver it.
Okay, thanks for that, Igor. Mira, I'm going to bring you back because you're a very early stage company. I know you're post-revenue, but you're still fairly early. How much does innovation play in the starting up of that new business? Is it do you consider it innovation, or is it just, look, I've got this idea and let's go for it?
It's constantly innovating. So here I'm going to distinguish between invention and innovation, because sometimes we can use that interchangeably. Invention is like a flash in the pan, whereas innovation is more incremental, and you do it over time, and then you see the success over time. When you keep doing it, you keep adding ideas and you take things out. To just give an example about what we're doing, we are working on a new product. Initially, the idea was to develop an IoT device that's to be used in the cyber realm, AI driven. And now we have realized that there is no cybersecurity unless it's quantum safe. So our device is now, so we have had to bring quantum into it as well. And that to me is innovation, because you're trying to see what's going to happen next. You've got to keep an eye out for the changes that are likely to come 5 or 10 years down the line. So it's constantly thinking on your toes.
Okay, so then that's an interesting comment. The difference between invention and innovation. Yeah, I can see that. So Mark, and when I think that you're in relative terms a really long-established company now, and so does innovation and invention continue to play a part in the development of your organization?
Yeah, I would say so. The innovation comes from the constant development of products that exist. And then, the invention does occur on a regular basis, where new ideas, new products come to mind. As Mira said, the invention is just something that comes spur of the moment, comes from nothing. And they result in completely new products in totally new lines. And they can come from any kind of influence from any kind of market, where someone thinks that it could be applicable to the industry we work in, possibly in a totally new way. So yeah, there's both innovation and invention in the industry that we work in. And it's worth noting that what we do is we don't just work on trains; we also work with buses as well. So yeah, there's a lot of change that occurs, I would say, and a lot of innovation.
Okay, so people use the expression "business as usual," which is an expression that I hate, I must admit, as if there's some things that you have to do normally, and then there's other stuff. And people tend to put project kind of work, and I suspect innovation into that. Well, I'll do it when I get round to it. How do you get the balance in Nomad between existing and maintaining your existing products, getting those stronger, and thinking about new products and new ideas? How do you get the balance right?
That's an interesting question. I think every business will struggle with it, because it always comes down to resources and demand for the business. I think the best way to handle it, and I think the most appropriate way to handle a lot of the things, is where you're getting the same technology demands over and over, where it's very similar. If you can introduce automation, it saves you a lot of time and makes things a lot more efficient. And at that point, you can hopefully free up more room so you can focus on that innovation and invention. But if you've got customer demands that are asking for it, then it's about prioritization as well. So getting things in the right priority so you can deliver at the right point.
So do you actually set some time aside to innovate, or does it just happen organically, or is it something you can force?
So it's quite organic in Nomad. We've got a lot of customers, a lot that are asking for a lot of different things. So we have to set time aside, but their requirements and their requests are quite organic. So if they want something that's new, it does require us to set time aside so we can focus on it and develop what they're looking for. And that's where you have to start focusing on your proofs of concepts, and trying to deliver things that have never been built before. So yeah, there's set aside time, but there's set aside time that comes or falls off the back of organic requests, I guess you could say.
Okay, excellent. So similar sort of question for Mira then, because early stage, you're working on developing new products, but you need to bring money in. How do you get the balance right between the revenue generation and the innovation and creation?
For new companies, it's really hard, Phil. And I think the revenue generation comes in through the consulting work we do. We're currently working with a large healthcare company and a large energy company. And we do a lot of consulting work for them. And at the back end, we are still building this product. And I think it's more so because we believe in it. We believe that we need better IoT solutions out there. So I think it's striking the balance is always a bit difficult. It's sort of carving out the time to do it and focusing on things that you actually value and sort of creating value, if you will, because I see cyber, for me, innovation is actually problem solving. We innovate to solve a problem, right? And it's a lot of that comes because you see a problem and you want to solve it, and that is what drives you, and that's what drives us at Sistel, is seeing the problems that we think there should be a solution for.
Okay, that's interesting. I think I'll come back to that in a second. Igor, you're a congenital innovator, and you seem to have more ideas than I've had hot dinners. So you always seem to be coming up with some. So, again, how do you get that balance as a new company between having to innovate and having to bring the money in? As I think you've spoken about the name of people.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, as I said, Phil, so we are trying to focus on something very huge in front of us. And I mean, for instance, using federated learning to share data or incidents or anonymize incident database. So for this particular things, we cannot fit the market now. For this, so basically we've been actively working with European Commission Horizon projects with companies like IBM, Thales, Atos, EDF on innovation actions. So that's because again, on the market we don't have understanding that we need this, but we understand altogether that we need to innovate for cybersecurity. So basically, this is our in real business with let's say real customers. We do something very very conventional. I mean, consultant auditing and delivering cybersecurity solutions, let's say. But for innovation, I do believe that we need these supra-governmental organizations. We need those innovation actions initiatives we've got here in the UK, and we've got good situation with that.
And so what happens, Igor, to the ones that don't work? What happens to those innovative ideas that just don't have legs and don't take off, as it were? He says, mixing his metaphors.
Yeah, we need to normally perceive this. I don't think it's something, I mean, from our ideas, let's say, some of them are being delivered right now, some of them in the progress, and 80% of them are just on the shelf, right? So we just understand this as a normal situation. And again, any idea can have a certain point in time and momentum for realization and development. So I don't think it's something terrible, being frank with you.
So can I just add?
I'd like to come back to you, Mira, about that point you made about innovation is basically, you said, solving problems, but not all problems that you solve will lead to innovative ideas, do you? Presumably there are a whole range of problems which are just stuff that you need to fix on a daily basis. Is there something that defines innovation as opposed to just problem solving? Is there a gap between the two?
When you have product process innovation, it can be so many things. So when you break innovation down, well, you've got existing solutions that can be applied to new problems, right? But a lot of problems need new solutions, and those can be categorized as innovations, because every time you tweak something, you're actually making something new. Those are new solutions that you're actually creating over time, and those are, I would not say radical innovations; those are incremental innovations that take you along the way. And I think there's a very important point made by Igor, because he was talking about the kind of role that governments play within this sphere. And I think if you look at some of the things that we have done to make sure that we are constantly innovating is to get that support. So we are a part of the Cyber ASAP, which was an academic startup accelerator that really helps you bring your ideas to the front, and constantly fine-tuning it by working with different stakeholders, and that's really critical.
Excellent, thank you. Right, well, we've got just about 4 minutes left, so I've got one more question which I'd like to just go through the group, if that's okay. And that I'll start with you, Mark. But you're clearly an innovative company. Can you define the conditions that exist in such a company to make it innovative? What needs to happen?
I'm not sure if I can comment for the company, but what I would say is in regards to cybersecurity, one of the main conditions that you get to see that pushes innovation is we're always trying and striving to protect our products and our businesses and our services, but there's always somebody out there acting potentially as an enemy, you could argue, who's trying to break that. And as a result, there's always somebody trying to push you to be better. Because from the cybersecurity perspective, we only have to have one weakness for us to potentially become vulnerable. Whereas a malicious entity has a world of opportunity. All they have to do is find one thing, whereas we have to protect everything. And that is constantly pushing the security industry to get better and to evolve and be innovative, and sometimes even inventive. And I think one of the most fascinating parts about that is when we do discover something that's malicious, which hasn't been seen before, you really start to get to see the creativity of the people that are trying to do the malicious aspect of things. And that creativity in itself, once you can see it, can then spark new ideas and new innovation on how we then protect our businesses and solutions. So it's a really interesting way to look at it when it comes to how we're innovating, how we're developing, not only as a company, but as an industry.
Excellent. I think it's that whole link between innovation and creativity and let it go free is a really interesting area. Igor, similar sort of question for you then in terms of are you able to describe what conditions are ideal in order to create an innovative environment?
Yeah, basically the problems to be solved. So, right, our office in Ukraine, we for last 4 months, we had a lot of problems just because one neighbor decided to shut down the country via cyber operations, and that basically a soil for innovative solutions, for sure, in very small time frame. I mean, we need to quickly. So that brings basically we had first, let's say, crowdsourced cyber defense in history in Ukraine for the last 4 months, and that was innovative and that was quickly created. And the same, but with with innovation inside of the company, I do believe that those approach we all embrace now, I mean, lean or agile approach, right? So we need to think every day. We need to create the environment, the ambience in our companies that we can create. We can bring something new. We can try this quickly, and then if that doesn't work, we just change. We don't need to be stubborn with something. And I mean, with for instance, with super governmental funding, right? We tried like 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and this year, this idea fits the problems which we can find. Because so UK Research and Innovation, Innovate UK, European Commission on Horizon Portal, they basically write down the problems, not the problems of today, the problems of tomorrow, and all of us, we can think about that.
So sorry, Igor, I'm going to have to cut you off there. We've unfortunately run out of time. So as always, I always think we're going to run out much earlier. But Mark, thank you very much for that. Mira, Igor, great to have you on board. And I'm sure this is a topic that will run and run for many years to come. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Cheers.